I always take my toll, blood or gold.
Hello fellow Sivir mains. Today I want to give a mathematic answer to the question, which item is best first item for Sivir? Before I start, there are a couple things I want to point out. Number 1. This video is based on my own experience as a Sivir main and my own opinion. As always, I would love to hear your takes on the things I present down in the comments. Number 2. Like pretty much everything in League and in life, there isn't one precise answer. This is a dynamic game and every game is different than the one before. I'm here to draw out some helpful information to help you navigate through the randomness. Number 3. I will try to lay out the simple mathematics solution to the question, which first item is best? And then I will dive into more nuanced considerations regarding each item. In this video, I tested 5 first items: Essence Sivir, Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Collector, and Kraken Slayer. Let's quickly go over each and every one of them. Looking on Essence Sivir, this item gives you 70 attack damage, 25 ability haste and 25% critical strike chance. It costs 3100 gold. Once you buy this item, you get mana refund on basic attacks. Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge gives you 80 attack damage, 25% critical strike chance and 40% critical strike damage, meaning that a critical strike hits for 175% damage, and those plus 40% bring it up to 215% extra damage on auto attacks. And the item price is 3400. Static Shiv is the cheapest item out of all 5 first items. It gives you 55 attack damage, 45% attack speed and 7% movement speed. This item costs 2800 and it has a cool passive that if you execute a minion, you spread a lightning that deals 120 magic damage. This lightning can spread to champions as well. If we take down champion, bigger lightning spreads out and deals 270 magic damage. Takedowns on minions has a 3-second cooldown, while the lightning from takedowns on champions has no cooldown at all. The Collector. This item gives 60 attack damage, 12 lethality and 25% critical strike chance. This is the only item that gives lethality. It costs 3200 gold and it has 2 pretty cool unique passives. First one is that on killing a champion you get 25 extra gold. The second one is that if you damage an enemy champion with 5% health or less, you execute them. And coming up to our last item, Kraken Slayer. Kraken Slayer gives 50 attack damage, 40% attack speed and 7% movement speed. This item costs 3100 gold and has a unique passive that every third attack deals bonus physical damage. Now that we've gone over the items, I will present the damage per second and total damage calculation for 100 auto attacks with each of these items. In all calculations, Sivir is level 9, PTA is the rune of choice and Zerker Greaves are purchased. Let's take a look on 100 auto attacks from each item and then move on to my explanation for why or why not buy each item. So now that we tested each item, let's talk about damage order. Highest damage was dealt by Kraken, after that came IE, then Essence Sivir, then Collector, and lastly Static Shiv. The variance in DPS and damage dealt stems from the damage of each item, but also for the item passive and attack speed. Take in consideration that, for example, we did not get to see Collector passive or Static Shiv passive. Now let's try to keep this short, but talk about the nuance behind those stats and reach a final conclusion for each item. First of all, highest DPS or damage over 100 auto attack for an item does not mean it is the best item to buy first. There's more things to take in consideration here. For example, talking about Kraken Slayer, it showed highest numbers, but this item does not give us any critical strike chance. So in the long run, it might be less good than any other item that gives you critical strike chance. So to make this practical, I'll draw out the general pros and cons for each item in the order of damage that has been dealt. starting with Kraken Slayer. If we look on the pros, the item passive makes Sivir much more stronger early game, meaning that she'll be more efficient in early game team fights and lane fights. Later on in game, she will be much more efficient into tanks. The item gives movement speed, which is always a valuable stat for immobile kiting AD carries. And lastly, this item allows you to skip the Zeal item as a second item, meaning either Navori or PD, and go straight for a second crit damage item like Infinity Edge, Lord Domes, or anything else. When we look on the cons of this item, it doesn't give critical strike chance, which means that you hit the 75% crit mark at 4 items, and you rarely will get to 4 items. So this item is really efficient in shorter games where you do not reach mid to late game. Shorter games are more common in higher elo, meaning diamond and up. Since we cannot predict how long a game will be, it comes down to how much you like the item and feel comfortable with it. I personally love Kraken Slayer and it is my go-to first item. Next is Infinity Edge. This item is the most expensive item out of the bunch. This item is a staple item on Sivir and a must build. The only reason not to buy it first is the slow build path and high price. Also, it is important to understand that Infinity Edge real potential unlocks only around 75% crit strike chance. This is because if we get bonus damage from critical strikes but we don't hit them, we don't enjoy the item. But with that said, once you complete it as a first item, you are just strong regardless of the item passive. And if you do get lucky and hit those critical strikes in early game team fights, you are absolutely dismantling the enemy. So, to sum up, Infinity Edge first is a safe option, but you must master efficient farming and time your backs with the right amount of gold. Essence River is a good first item option. It is 300 gold cheaper than IE, and with the right rune page, it can be even more efficient. Essence River, in my opinion, should be built when we choose not to take Presence of Mind. It means we suffer from mana issues until completion, but once we have Essence River, it pays off highly. Also, this item has critical strike and gives a good amount of AD. In my opinion, the CDR is a completely useless stat, especially if we build Navoris. But it is what it is. Like Infinity Edge, and in contrast from Kraken and Static, it does not give attack speed, so you might feel a bit slow until you complete the Zeal. And if you do decide to go Presence of Mind, item passive can get redundant later on. Arriving to Collector, I personally never build this as a first item. In general, I don't really like Collector on Sivir unless I go Static Shiv and enemy team doesn't have tanks at all. In the case of tanks, Collector becomes pretty useless. I will talk about the good things that this item can bring us as a first item. Serrated Dirk is a cool first item component. It can help us harass in lane with Q. Also, the item passive can come really handy in early game teamfights, but if we talk about the cons, as I said, it is inefficient into teams with tanks, and also it doesn't give attack speed. So in general, if you do buy Collector, I don't think it should be the first item. Lastly, we arrive to Static Shift. Pros here are that this is the cheapest first item and has a very nice build path that complements laning phase back timing. Passive allows quick wave clear, which is good in the case of a roaming support or a very oppressive enemy bot lane. Early game lane fights can be won thanks to the champion takedown lightning, but this item passive remains pretty useless after that and only comes back to real value in the latest game teamfights. It also gives the highest attack speed and movement speed just like Kraken Slayer. The main cons are like those of Kraken Slayer regarding the critical strike chance, but also it is very weak stat-wise. So let's sum up all that we talked about in this video. A first item decision is not absolute and it's dynamic according to the enemy team comp, your team comp, and how the laning phase is turning out. I did my best to draw out each item's strengths and weaknesses for you to have an idea when you do need to decide between them. On top of that, if you have an item that works best for you, that is awesome, stick to it. Eventually, even though we're all masochistic Sivir mains playing the most outdated, mechanically simple champion, each and every one of us develops a unique playstyle, and that's the beauty of truly maining a champion. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you found this video of value, please like it, it helps for exposure. Comment any questions or remarks and subscribe if you haven't. I stream Sivir gameplay on Twitch, so make sure to follow me there as well. And until the next one, bye.